My name is Carolyn Dean. I'm a medical doctor and naturopathic doctor, and I want to thank Dr. McCullough for the opportunity to update everybody on magnesium. It seems like a simple topic, but I've been working with magnesium for about 15 years now, and I wrote the book, The Magnesium Miracle, and I'm working up to my third edition of this book because the research is overwhelming about this very simple mineral that 80% of the population is missing. So what I want to convey today is the importance of magnesium, how you can get it, how you can know how much you require in your body, and the incredible benefits from using this simple mineral. Magnesium is the most important mineral in the body. It may not be the mineral that there's the most of, but it is the most important. It's a mineral that activates the muscles and the nerves. It's a mineral that attaches to ATP, adenosine triphosphate, to create the energy in the body. So without magnesium, you don't have energy. It helps to digest proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. It actually is a building block for RNA and DNA. It's a precursor for neurotransmitters like serotonin. It does so much in the body, but we haven't heard much about it. It's not a drug, it's not a medication, so it's not something I learned about in medical school. Being a naturopath, I learned more about it in my naturopathic training. But then when Random House asked me to write a book on magnesium back in the late 90s, I was astounded that I was very deficient in magnesium, as evidenced by heart palpitations and terrible Charlie horse leg cramps. So I was deficient, I needed magnesium, and I wanted to learn more. What I found out in the past 5 years about magnesium is that hardly anybody is really getting enough. What happens is we tend to get the laxative effect with magnesium before we get the therapeutic effect. So let me explain. When you take magnesium, say a full day's dose, you can actually get the laxative effect if you take it all at once. And that's a fail-safe for magnesium, and that's a good thing. The fail-safe is kind of evolutionary. Humans grew up around the oceans, and in the ocean, there's 3 times the amount of magnesium as there is calcium. It's kind of sister mineral. So when you're eating seaweed and lots of fish and whatever else is coming from the sea, you're getting lots of magnesium. So if you get too much, the fail-safe is you'll get the laxative effect or diarrhea if there's too much magnesium on board. But calcium, where are you getting your calcium? There's no dairy cow, there's no yogurt, there's no cheeses. You have to get your calcium from bones of fish. So calcium was required, obviously, for the bones, but because there was little in the food people were eating, there was this grabbing effect of vitamin D holding on to calcium in the body. So now, thousands and centuries later, we've had a turning of the tables where we're getting lots of calcium, too much calcium. People are being told to take lots of calcium supplements, and they're not told anything about magnesium. When you look at blood tests, something called a chem screen, you'll see the electrolytes, calcium, potassium, chloride, and sodium measured, but not even a measure of magnesium. So calcium is being overutilized, taken in high quantities, and magnesium isn't being taken at all. So what's been happening is, as I mentioned earlier, the muscle and nerve function that magnesium is responsible for is diminished. If you don't have enough magnesium, your muscles go into spasm. Calcium causes muscles to contract. If you had a balance, the muscles would do their thing. They'd relax and contract and create their activity. With too much calcium, you get intense spasming and contraction of muscles, which can lead to a heart attack. So thus we say magnesium is very important for the heart. The highest amount of magnesium in the whole body is in the heart, specifically in the left ventricle. So people who have heart attacks, who die of a sudden heart attack after an athletic event, they can be expressing a severe magnesium deficiency, and the calcium that remains causes the muscles to go into sustained contraction and thus a heart attack, and the heart pump just stops functioning. So we have this incredible importance of the balancing of calcium and magnesium. What's happened over the past 30 years, we've been told to take 1,200, 1,500 milligrams of calcium, mostly women, to avoid osteoporosis. Well, what's happened in the past 3 decades is we've got more and more osteoporosis. I've heard statistics like a 700% rise in osteoporosis in a 10-year period, even while taking all this calcium. So what we seem to think, the myth that's been created about calcium, is that we need twice as much calcium as we do magnesium. Most of the supplements reflect this. So we've got a situation where, as I mentioned, people are taking 1,200, 1,500 milligrams of calcium and maybe a few hundred milligrams of magnesium. The 2-to-1 ratio, that was a mistaken translation from a French researcher, Jean Durlac, who said, never ever go beyond 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium in your food, water, or supplement intake. So that got mistranslated into, oh, that must be the amount that we required, 2 parts calcium to 1 part magnesium. In the UK, the calcium RDA is 700 milligrams. The World Health Organization, it's 500 to 700 milligrams. If you look at today's diet, you can be getting enough calcium. You can be getting your 700 milligrams from dairy sources, nuts and seeds, deep green leafy vegetables. You just have to look at food lists and add it up. Whereas with magnesium, magnesium is farmed out of the soil much more than calcium. So 100 years ago, we would get maybe 500 milligrams in an ordinary diet, 500 milligrams of magnesium. Now we're lucky to get 200 milligrams. So people do need to supplement with magnesium. The forms of magnesium vary, and this is where we come back to what I started in about the laxative effect of magnesium. The cheapest sources of magnesium are magnesium oxide supplements. These supplements are only 4% absorbed, and that absorption is into the bloodstream, where the test is a serum magnesium test. 4% absorption into the blood, 96% goes through the intestines and causes the laxative effect. Now that may be fine for people who have constipation and want to use magnesium as a laxative. However, they're not really getting therapeutic levels of magnesium. The other forms, magnesium citrate, especially the magnesium citrate powder that you mix in water, you can sip that through the day, and that can be less laxative. But even so, the citrates, the chelates, even the glycinates, they may be only about 20% absorbed. Personally, I've had to research this because I get the laxative effect immediately with most pills and powders of magnesium, except for forms in the picometer size. So you can research pico magnesium and see what I'm talking about. But this form is 100% absorbed at the cellular level and allows people to get a therapeutic amount without the laxative effect. Otherwise, forms like Epsom salts in a bath or a foot bath. Epsom salt is a magnesium sulfate. That can be a transdermal, through the skin form of absorption. Magnesium oil can be used. You spray it on the skin and it absorbs through the skin. So there are other non-laxative forms that you can take. But my point about magnesium, as I've studied it over these past 15 years, is I don't think everybody's getting the best therapeutic amount of magnesium. What I used to say, I have in my book 100 factors that help you decide whether or not you need magnesium. I have blogs called Gauging Magnesium Deficiency, and try to leave it up to the person to take enough to take away your symptoms. But I finally realized people needed a good measurement. The blood test I mentioned earlier, the serum magnesium test, it's not accurate enough. Only 1% of the total body magnesium is found in the bloodstream. So if you put your dipstick into the bloodstream, you're only measuring that 1%, which is guarded very carefully by feedback mechanisms in the body, because it's the magnesium that's used for the heart. So if the blood magnesium goes low, that 1% goes low, then the body immediately pulls magnesium out of the bones and muscles to keep the blood magnesium looking normal. So every time a doctor, in a hospital setting does a serum magnesium test, they probably find a normal range because the body makes it so. But what is happening is the body is constantly losing the storage form of magnesium, so you don't have anything to fall back on. The blood test that I recommend now is the magnesium RBC test. RBC stands for red blood cell magnesium. And the red blood cells hold 40% of the magnesium in the body, so you're getting a much better measure than the serum magnesium. So it's a great way to gauge where you are now, and as you take magnesium, whether or not you're building up your levels. Now, the difficult part of this is you can't just look at the range. The range now in the labs is 4.2 to 6.8 milligrams per deciliter. About 30 years ago, the range was 5 to 7. So as we get sicker, the range gets lower and lower. But what you want to be is 6.5 milligrams per deciliter. So look for that amount, 6.5, because otherwise a doctor will say in the range of 4.2 to 6.8, oh, you're 4.3, you're fine. You are not fine. That is the sick population where 80% of us are deficient. So you look for 6.5. If your doctor won't do a magnesium RBC, you can actually do it yourself. You can go on a website called requestatest.com. It's a public website. You can order a test. It's $49. So you can get a measure every few months and follow your magnesium. And yes, you have to take responsibility. If your doctor isn't going to do it, then you can take responsibility to do this. So one of the reasons why magnesium is becoming so important is we keep on draining our magnesium. One of the huge ways is our prescription drugs. The scenario that I like to talk about is very basic. You will recognize it immediately in either yourself or family members. You go to your doctor, you're under massive stress. Massive stress means you're losing magnesium. You're burning magnesium out of your body because it helps support your adrenal glands. It helps keep you away from anxiety and depression. It helps relax your muscles. So if you're all tight and stressed, your magnesium is being lost. What happens to the muscles of your blood vessels is they go tight. That tightness is going to cause increased blood pressure. Your doctor does your blood pressure, or the nurse will do your blood pressure. It's elevated because you're under stress. The doctor is under stress too. The doctor doesn't have time to even ask you if you're under stress, but says, oh, your blood pressure is elevated. We'll give you a diuretic. A diuretic is to drop the fluid level in your body to take the pressure off your blood vessels so your blood pressure will drop. But what else a diuretic does is drain off your magnesium. They know it'll drain off your potassium, so a doctor may say, well, eat a banana or an orange every day when you're on this. But they don't say anything about your magnesium, and they don't do your magnesium blood test. So you go away, a month later you come back and the doctors find your blood pressure is even more elevated. Yes, because you've just lost more magnesium. So your doctor will put you on a calcium channel blocker. Now they have that part right. They know that without magnesium, your calcium is going to become elevated and tighten up your blood vessels, so they try to block calcium. But they don't know that magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker. They'll also put you on an ACE inhibitor, another blood pressure drug, and come to find out, some recent studies just showed that people on ACE inhibitors have a higher risk of cancer. So you go away with 3 drugs now. After 2 or 3 months, you come back and have blood taken to make sure the drugs aren't hurting your liver or whatever, and all of a sudden, your cholesterol is elevated. And all of a sudden, your blood sugar is elevated. And what does the doctor say? Oh, we cut your cholesterol, and we just cut your blood sugar, and we can put you on medications. They didn't catch them, they caused them. Because the more you reduce your magnesium, the more your cholesterol will get out of control, because magnesium is important to balance out the enzyme that creates cholesterol in the body and helps to balance your cholesterol. The statin drugs kill the enzyme that the magnesium balances. And blood sugar, the same thing. If you look up in the signs and symptoms of diabetes in any allopathic medical book, you'll find that one of the signs of diabetes is low magnesium. So here you are after 4 months of magnesium deficiency induced high blood pressure, with still your blood pressure is high, high cholesterol, and diabetes. And now you're on 5 or 6 medications. And all those medications will lower your magnesium levels. So we've got an increasingly difficult problem in allopathic prescriptive medicine. When I went to medical school in the mid-70s, the average cholesterol was 250. Now doctors are trying to get you to hammer it down below 200. This is a ploy to get people on statin drugs. I believe it, because we need our cholesterol. Our body makes 80% of the cholesterol we use. Cholesterol is an antioxidant. If you're toxic, your cholesterol will be elevated. Cholesterol is a precursor to all the hormones in your body. If you're a man and you're on a statin drug that kills your cholesterol, then you're going to need Viagra because your hormones are so beaten down. Every drug that is prescribed, I think, probably decreases your magnesium levels. And what's interesting, a doctor friend, Mildred Zelig, who was a magnesium expert, I interviewed her before she died and while I was writing my magnesium book. She said her job straight out of medical school, when she was hired by a pharmaceutical company, was to measure the levels of vitamins and minerals in subjects when they took medication. What she found was astounding and led to her next career. What she found was that every drug that was prescribed would lower the levels of some nutrients but elevate magnesium. So magnesium would come to the rescue. When you took a drug that the liver had to detoxify, that stimulated the body in certain ways, magnesium was shot out of the storage sites to try, as I said, to come to the rescue. So what was fascinating, and Dr. Zelig speculated at the time, magnesium may be what's causing the drugs to look good. And the benefits of the drugs for the first 6 to 8 weeks could be from magnesium elevation. She told her bosses, they weren't really interested, so she left the field to research magnesium for the rest of her life. And what she said was, maybe after those 6 or 8 weeks, the magnesium stores are so low that then the drug side effects start coming out. And we know that most drug trials are 6 to 8 weeks before the side effects really implode on a person. So, I mean, I thought that was incredible information, and it stayed with me. And, you know, I'm always looking at drugs and their side effects and looking for the interaction with magnesium. One of the most recent is the past number of years, the drug companies have been putting fluoride into drug formulas. And someone said, I'll have to find the reference for Dr. Mercola, that maybe up to 50% of drugs now have fluoride attached to the formula. So you've got drugs like fluoroquinolone antibiotics, Cipro. Everybody knows Cipro. That was supposed to be the anthrax drug, and a lot of people took it prophylactically, and that showed a lot of side effects. One major side effect, one end point of Cipro toxicity is tendon rupture. But up to that point, it's muscle pain, muscle tightness, muscle spasm. What that means to me is magnesium deficiency. What happens with fluoride when it's around magnesium? They bind. There's a molecule formed called magnesium fluoride, and that effectively eliminates magnesium from the body. So you've got people taking cholesterol drugs, anti-anxiety drugs, painkillers for arthritis, a dozen different types of drugs have fluoride molecules, and when you take them, they bind your magnesium, making you deficient and causing side effects that most doctors, they'll just say, well, maybe you need more drug. When I wrote the paper, Death by Medicine, and then the book, Death by Modern Medicine, I found a couple of studies that said doctors are so reluctant to believe that they're harming their patients that they only recognize drug side effects 4% of the time. So 96% of the time, your drug side effects go unrecognized. And as I said, the symptoms you come back with, the doctors say, oh, maybe you need more of this drug, or we'll add another drug, adding to the cocktail of abuse and the magnesium deficiency. And one amazing thing that happens with all this drug intake is a lot of inflammation. And inflammation is a big byword now. As much as we're still using statins, a lot of drug companies are looking more at inflammation as being the cause of heart disease. And what we know about inflammation is that calcium is a huge precursor of inflammatory effects in the body. And magnesium is the best anti-inflammatory. So what's happened with calcium supplementation in these past few decades? I alluded to it earlier, but coming back to it now, when women have been told to take 1,500, even 2,000 milligrams of calcium a day, they're actually creating inflammation in the body, and that has caused an increase in heart disease. We've got 3 studies now in the British Medical Journal. It was a research facility out of New Zealand that showed that women who just simply take calcium supplements are at a much higher risk for heart disease. Nothing is said about magnesium. People were just sort of left up in the air. Some doctors are saying, yeah, don't take calcium anymore. Nobody's talking about magnesium as being the balance point. What I say about calcium and magnesium, I mentioned earlier, 700 milligrams of each. Try to get your calcium from dietary sources. You can use bone broth. I mean, boiling up some bones, remember our grandmothers used to do that? You can get a lot of calcium out of bones and increase your dietary intake. Calcium from food is what our body wants to absorb. With magnesium, as I mentioned earlier, you're lucky if you get 200 milligrams of magnesium from your diet, so you do want a supplement. I should mention a little more about that. Some people feel that, well, I eat organic, I should be getting enough magnesium. However, if your organic farmer does not use rock salt or rock powder, rock dust. I think it's called rock dust. If they don't use magnesium fertilizer, the soil is not going to have magnesium in it for the plants to take up and create the magnesium you need in your diet. So this is the state we're at right now. Is a person should try to get their calcium from the diet and take magnesium supplements. One thing that I want to mention that's happening in allopathic medicine is some recognition of magnesium. I received an award last year in 2012. Now, I hope I can remember the name of it. It's a crazy long name. It was the Arrhythmia Alliance Outstanding Medical Contribution to Rhythm Management Services Award 2012. And it was given by the Rhythm Society of the UK, the Heart Rhythm Society of the UK. And it's a huge organization, huge allopathic organization. When I blogged about it, one of my readers said, you should have just called it the Making Miserable People Happy Award. Because what had been happening with my Magnesium Miracle book and my blogs, a lot of people began taking magnesium for their atrial fibrillation and for their heart palpitations and for their fast heartbeat. And they were finding that magnesium alone was calming down their heart rate. What happens when the heart is kind of beating spastically, shall we say, when different areas of the heart are contracting and other areas are relaxing, when there's not a good balance. Sometimes an alternate pacemaker of the heart, a natural pacemaker, can be triggered. Like if there's a spasm around the pacemaker, it can be triggered to start thumping away, creating this atrial fibrillation. But when you take magnesium, and magnesium relaxes the heart muscles and then allows the calcium to gently contract the heart muscles, and you have a balance, then the heart arrhythmia goes away. So this is one of the areas, as I said, where allopathic medicine is giving some recognition. But at the same time, I'm seeing on medical health websites, allopathic websites, you'll see headers or headlines that say, is magnesium dangerous? And what are the side effects of magnesium? And you see, what they've been doing is treating magnesium as if it's a drug. Because doctors in medical school don't learn about magnesium as a food, as a nutrient, as a cofactor in all the metabolic processes in the body, because they don't learn that and they just look upon it as, another medication, then, they're afraid of it. They'll sort of back off. They think the laxative effect is a side effect, whereas it's a fail-safe. So they've got it backwards, and I'm constantly having to write blogs like, magnesium is not dangerous, magnesium is safe, take your magnesium. So people have to research this. What I've done to help educate beside my blogs is I'm on the medical board of the Nutritional Magnesium Association. It's a nonprofit where you can get free information about magnesium. I belong to a Facebook page called the Magnesium Advocacy Group, and that stands for MAG, we call her Maggie. So people can go on that site. I think we've got about 3,000 members now. People can ask questions and get information about magnesium because it is so deficient, it is so necessary. Doctors aren't going to tell you about it. And in my most recent negative report about magnesium and doctors, one doctor actually said to a patient who's just had a heart attack, well, you have to take these 6 drugs. And they're like the drugs I mentioned earlier, 3 for high blood pressure, 1 for cholesterol, and 1 for blood sugar. Even if you don't have high blood pressure or cholesterol or blood sugar, you will be put on these drugs. They're in a blister pack. And the patient said, well, can I keep taking my magnesium? And the doctor said, no, 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 that'll interfere with the drugs. So we've got an uphill battle now where doctors know less and less about less and less. And what they'll say about the drugs is, yes, they'll interfere. They'll interfere with the blood pressure drug because they'll help your blood pressure go down so you don't need the drug. And they'll interfere with the cholesterol drug because they'll lower your cholesterol, and with your blood sugar drugs. So keep taking magnesium, and take it in the various sources, the pico magnesium, the Epsom salts. I mean, take the magnesium citrates. Take an oxide if you're constipated. 60% of the population is constipated anyway, so you may need the magnesium oxide, but take the other ones as well. So my message is, take magnesium. It is your new best friend.